When they told you I was bad, they mean super duper bad. A whole herd of class with the perfect round ass, jazzy attitude to match. Her body got more curves than the Coca-Cola glass.
On September 16th, 2021, deputies responded to reports of gunfire at a home on Osceola Circle in Fairfield, Alabama. Inside, they found a 27-year-old woman with gunshot wounds. She was transported to a Birmingham hospital and later pronounced dead. The shooter was identified as a 45-year-old man, the husband of her cousin. He remained at the scene long enough to call authorities before leaving and was later located at a nearby convenience store. Investigators confirmed the two were involved in a dispute that escalated quickly. The man admitted to firing the weapon but claimed the act was in self-defense. He told investigators that the woman had threatened him and was armed. Detectives processed the scene, collected evidence, and took statements from those present during the argument. The incident report documented the progression of events from a verbal exchange to a fatal shooting. Months later, a Jefferson County grand jury indicted the shooter on intentional murder charges. Court records show the case then centered on whether Alabama's stand your ground law applied. The defense argued the statute protected his actions, while prosecutors maintained the shooting was unlawful. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Lady Monique Esther Zaire Simmons was a 27-year-old resident of Birmingham, Alabama. At the time of her death, she was a mother of 3 young children. She lived with her family in a residential neighborhood and maintained a routine centered on her children and household responsibilities. Her life revolved around her family, her home, and her local community. Her familial connections were close-knit. She had a cousin who was married to Cliven Milton, the individual later identified as her shooter. Within her extended family, she was recognized as a figure of responsibility and consistency, maintaining regular contact and engagement with relatives. Beyond her family, she was known in her neighborhood and social circles as a reliable and active community member. She participated in local events and was present in various community-driven activities. Personality and character reports described Lady Monique as a mother deeply committed to her children, resilient in managing daily responsibilities, and consistent in her social engagements. She was considered warm, reliable, and proactive in her personal and family interactions. Lady Monique maintained a presence on social media, particularly Facebook, where she shared aspects of her daily life, family interactions, and social connections. These posts reflected routine activities, her responsibilities as a mother, and her social relationships. Her online activity painted a picture of a woman embedded in her family and community, maintaining the roles expected of her within both environments. Her standing in the community was notable. Neighbors, acquaintances, and local community members recognized her reliability and presence. Following her death, memorials and tributes appeared online and in person, reflecting the recognition she received in her community. The incident leading to Lady Monique's death occurred at a residential property on Osceola Circle in Fairfield, Alabama. The event took place during the early morning hours, around 1 a.m. The circumstances involved a domestic dispute with family members present. Reports from law enforcement indicate that the argument escalated, transitioning from a verbal confrontation to a physical encounter. Specific details from witnesses vary, but it is documented that a disagreement occurred immediately prior to the shooting. During this confrontation, Lady Monique was shot by Cliven Milton. Milton later stated that he perceived a threat and claimed that Lady Monique had brandished a firearm and presented imminent danger to him. The shooting occurred on site before law enforcement arrived. Following the shooting, Milton placed a 911 call reporting the incident. Deputies responding to the call arrived at the property and found Lady Monique with gunshot wounds. Emergency medical services were contacted immediately. Milton was subsequently located by law enforcement at a nearby convenience store, where he was taken into custody for questioning. Emergency responders transported Lady Monique to a local hospital. Upon arrival, She was evaluated by medical personnel and pronounced dead shortly thereafter. The precise duration from the time of the shooting to the pronouncement of death has not been publicly detailed, but hospital records confirm that she was deceased on arrival. The investigation focused on multiple factors, including weapon ownership, prior domestic disputes, and the dynamics between Lady Monique and Milton. Law enforcement collected information regarding the firearm used in the incident, any history of domestic tension, and potential witness statements from family and neighbors. Authorities secured physical and digital evidence from the scene. Ballistics tests were conducted on the firearm involved to determine its involvement in the fatal shot. Fingerprints were taken from the weapon and surrounding surfaces to verify handling. If available, surveillance footage from nearby homes or security cameras was requested to clarify movements and interactions prior to the shooting. The 911 call placed by Milton was recorded and preserved as part of the official investigation. Law enforcement reviewed the call for statements indicating the sequence of events, perceived threats, and any admissions or observations relevant to establishing intent or self-defense. Multiple individuals present during the incident provided statements. These included family members who were involved in the domestic dispute and neighbors who may have observed parts of the incident. Conflicting accounts emerged regarding whether Lady Monique posed a threat at the time of the shooting. Some statements corroborated Milton's claim that she had a weapon or acted aggressively, while others indicated no visible threat was present prior to the shooting. The collection and comparison of these witness statements formed a significant part of the investigative record, contributing to the legal assessment of the shooting and the subsequent self-defense claim. Following the fatal shooting of Lady Monique Esther Zaire Simmons on September 16, 2021, law enforcement conducted a thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding the incident. Deputies collected evidence from the scene at Osceola Circle in Fairfield, Alabama, including witness statements, ballistic reports, and recordings from a 911 call placed by Cliven Milton, the alleged shooter. Milton, 45 years old and married to Simmons' cousin, had claimed that the shooting occurred in self-defense. After several months of investigation, the Jefferson County Grand Jury reviewed the evidence and, in February 2022, formally indicted Cliven Milton for intentional murder. The indictment outlined a legal charge that Milton had caused the death of Simmons through intentional action, establishing the basis for prosecution. The indictment marked the first formal step in the legal process, signaling that the case would proceed to the judicial system for trial. The grand jury's decision followed standard procedures under Alabama law, reflecting consideration of witness statements, physical evidence, and the circumstances of the dispute that resulted in the shooting. In response to the indictment, the defense entered claim of self-defense under Alabama's Stand Your Ground statute. This law permits individuals to use force, including lethal force, when they reasonably perceive an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm. The defense argued that Milton acted within his legal rights at the time of the incident, asserting that he faced a direct threat from Simmons. During pretrial preparations and hearings, the defense emphasized Milton's perception of danger. Testimonies were presented indicating that Milton believed Simmons had a firearm and intended to use it against him. The defense maintained that Milton's response was proportional to perceived threat, highlighting his awareness of personal risk during the altercation. These testimonies became central to the case, as a determination of whether Milton's belief in imminent danger was reasonable would play a pivotal role in the legal outcome. The trial process included multiple pre-trial hearings and motions, during which the prosecution and defense examined the admissibility of evidence, witnesses, and legal arguments. Evidence under review included the firearm involved in the shooting, forensic analysis from the scene, and the 911 call recordings. The prosecution sought to establish intentionality and challenge a claim of self-defense, while the defense aimed to reinforce Milton's perceived threat and compliance with the parameters of Stand Your Ground law. Pre-trial hearings also addressed procedural matters, such as the disclosure of witness statements and the sequencing of testimonies. Motions were filed to include or exclude specific pieces of evidence, and judges presided over arguments from both sides regarding legal interpretations of self-defense standards. This period of the trial was crucial in shaping the legal framework for how the case would be evaluated, including determining which elements of the Stand Your Ground statute would apply. After the trial and comprehensive evaluation of evidence, the court reached a decision in March 2024. The judge dismissed the murder charges against Clive and Milton, ruling that his actions were legally justified under Alabama's Stand Your Ground law. The ruling concluded that the prosecution had not sufficiently disproven Milton's claim of self-defense, establishing that the circumstances of the incident fell within the legal protections afforded by the statute. The judge's explanation highlighted the legal reasoning behind the dismissal, noting that Alabama law permits individuals to use lethal force if they reasonably perceive a threat of death or serious bodily injury. The decision clarified that the perception of danger, even if disputed by others, can legally justify the use of force, provided that the actions taken are proportional to the threat. This interpretation aligned with the statutory language of Stand Your Ground laws and set a precedent for similar cases within the jurisdiction. The dismissal of charges generated widespread attention from both local and national observers. Legal experts analyzed the application of the Stand Your Ground statute, debating the extent to which perceived threats can justify lethal action. Discussions focused on the standards of reasonableness, proportionality, and evidentiary requirements for self-defense claims. Commentators highlighted the complexities inherent in cases where familial relationships intersect with allegations of violent action. Public response was mixed. Some observers supported the ruling, noting that the legal framework permitted Milton's actions under conditions established by the law. Others questioned the decision, arguing that the dismissal may have overlooked key factors regarding intentionality and escalation during domestic disputes. The legal debate underscored ongoing tension between statutory protections and public perceptions of justice. The family of Lady Monique Esther Zaire Simmons experienced immediate consequences following the court ruling. Her children and extended family members were confronted with the legal outcome, which formally cleared Milton of criminal liability. While the account remains factual, family responses included expressions of concern regarding the interpretation of self-defense laws and their implications for victims. The children of the deceased lost their mother, and family members had to navigate logistical, legal, and social implications of the court's decision. Beyond the immediate family, members of the Fairfield and Birmingham communities responded to the legal proceedings with heightened attention. Local residents engaged in public discussions, with some criticizing the dismissal and calling for re-evaluation of Alabama's self-defense statutes. Calls for legislative review and potential reform of Stand Your Ground laws were documented in public forums, town meetings, and community gatherings. While expressions of outrage varied in format, the underlying issue focused on the intersection of legal protection, perceived threat, and accountability in cases of domestic violence. The case attracted coverage across multiple media platforms. Local news outlets reported on the initial shooting, the indictment, and the subsequent dismissal of charges, presenting timelines, statements from law enforcement, and judicial findings. National outlets highlighted the broader implications of the case, emphasizing debates over self-defense legislation. Social media platforms also reflected significant discussion, with posts and campaigns documenting public interest, sharing legal analyses, and referencing the life of Lady Monique Esther Zaire Simmons. This media attention contributed to the wider recognition of the case and maintained public engagement throughout the legal process. The dismissal of charges in this case provided a reference point for discussions about the application of Stand Your Ground laws in Alabama. Legal scholars, community leaders, and policymakers examined the balance between individual self-protection and accountability for lethal actions. Debates included the thresholds for perceived threats, the role of evidence in proving or disproving self-defense, and the societal implications for families affected by gun violence. By documenting the procedural history, public reaction, and legal outcomes, this case serves as a study in statutory interpretation and the practical consequences of self-defense claims. The interplay between law enforcement procedures, judicial reasoning, and community response underscores the complexity of legal frameworks in incidents involving family disputes and firearm use. The aftermath of the shooting death of Lady Monique Esther Zaire Simmons extended far beyond the courtroom. The legal decision to dismiss the intentional murder charge under Alabama's Stand Your Ground law not only closed a chapter in the judicial system, but also opened broader discussions on law, accountability, and social consequences. The effects of the ruling spread into the private lives of her family, the policies debated in legal institutions, and the larger questions about how self-defense is defined in situations involving family members. One of the most immediate and visible impacts was on the children of Lady Monique Simmons. As a mother of three, her absence created a permanent gap in their lives. The children were forced to grow up without maternal presence, a loss that altered the structure of their upbringing. Guardianship arrangements had to be established to provide them with stability. The children's lives, once structured around a family with their mother present, shifted to a life under the care of extended relatives and legal guardians. The emotional consequences of losing a parent under violent circumstances created challenges for the household. Daily routines, education, and long-term development were reshaped by the absence of their mother. Beyond the psychological void, the children and family faced practical issues connected to financial stability. Lady Monique was not only a caregiver but also a source of support, and her death required adjustments in how her children's needs, educational, medical, and personal, would be met. Financial consequences came into focus as extended family members assumed responsibility for the upbringing of the children. Household income and resources had to be restructured to accommodate their needs. Support systems, such as child assistance programs and community support networks, played a role in filling the gaps left by her absence. These arrangements underscored the wider ripple effects of her death, stretching beyond the incident itself into the long-term reality of the family. The case became significant within legal circles due to the application of Alabama's Stand Your Ground law. The dismissal of charges in March 2024 set a clear example of how the law could be used in disputes occurring in private residences, even when involving family members. The interpretation of the law emphasized that if a person believed their life was threatened, they could use deadly force without the duty to retreat, regardless of pre-existing family ties. Legal analysts began to reference the Simmons case in discussions about the scope of self-defense. Commentators noted that the application of the law extended beyond confrontations with strangers and could include conflicts arising in domestic spaces. The case was cited in debates about whether the law protects individuals sufficiently or whether it creates vulnerabilities in cases where conflicting testimony exists. The precedent also fed into broader national discussions on gun legislation. Advocates for reform highlighted the Simmons case as an example of how expansive self-defense laws could intersect with tragedies within families. Lawmakers, attorneys, and advocacy groups use it as a reference point in evaluating the boundaries of justified homicide. While the dismissal resolved the legal liability of the shooter, it left ongoing debates about whether the law balanced fairness with accountability. In the wake of her death, digital and physical memorials emerged to mark the life of Lady Monique Simmons. Online memorial pages were created on platforms such as Tribute Archive and Gun Memorial, providing a space for individuals to document her life and acknowledge the circumstances of her death. Photographs, written tributes, and recollections of her as a mother circulated through these platforms. Community vigils also took place, serving as physical gatherings for individuals to recognize her passing. Such vigils represented not only a remembrance, but also a collective acknowledgement of the impact of the event on the community. Community members organized tributes that extended beyond her immediate family, signaling the broader awareness of the case and its connection to the ongoing issues of violence and legal interpretation. These tributes reflected a communal process of addressing loss through public recognition. They preserve her memory in both digital archives and collective memory, while also tying her name to ongoing discussions about the incident and its consequences. The Simmons case highlighted broader societal issues that extended into discussions of domestic violence, firearm accessibility, and the application of self-defense laws. Analysts noted that domestic disputes are often intensified when firearms are present, leading to outcomes that might otherwise be avoided. The fatal result in this case reinforced questions about how easily accessible guns shape the outcomes of personal conflicts. The case also served as a point of reference in conversations about the interpretation of Stand Your Ground laws. The ruling emphasized that the law could validate self-defense claims even within family disputes. This outcome created discussions about whether such laws inadvertently weaken protections for victims in domestic settings. Critics question whether individuals in conflict are equally protected, or the law disproportionately favors those who survive to present their narrative. Discussions extended into family dynamics, particularly the challenges of disputes escalating into violence when firearms are involved. Legal accountability was examined through the lens of whether the ruling provided justice to all parties or whether it revealed structural gaps in the legal system. Victim protection also came under review, as the case illustrated how individuals who are killed in such disputes cannot present their side, leaving courts to rely on surviving testimony. These societal implications position the Simmons case not only as a singular tragedy, but as part of a broader discourse about law, violence, and the balance of rights. The death of Lady Monique Esther Zaire Simmons began with a domestic dispute in Fairfield, Alabama, on September 16, 2021. She was fatally shot by her cousin's husband, Cliven Milton, who claimed he acted in self-defense under the Stand Your Ground law. Initially indicted for intentional murder in 2022, Milton's charges were dismissed by a judge in March 2024. The ruling validated his claim of self-defense, closing the case legally but opening it to broader public scrutiny. The Simmons case left several questions unanswered regarding the interpretation of justice and morality. It raised issues about how the law applies when conflicts involve family members. It highlighted the difficulties of determining truth in cases where one party is deceased and the other asserts self-defense. The reliance on legal frameworks, such as Stand Your Ground, provided closure within the courts but left open-ended debates in public forums. The long-term consequences remain evident. For the family, particularly the children, the loss is permanent. For the legal system, the case serves as a precedent and a discussion point for future considerations of self-defense law. For the community, the incident continues to illustrate the intersection of domestic disputes, firearm use, and the legal definitions of justified homicide. The Simmons case underscores the complexity of balancing individual rights, family relationships, and societal expectations within the framework of law. While the court ruling brought a conclusion to the legal proceedings, it left broader questions about accountability and justice unresolved, ensuring that the case continues to be referenced in discussions about law and society. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.